Are you having a hard time pulling your paintings together and you're wondering how you can bring that beautiful pop, that aesthetic quality, that professional finish to your paintings? Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about 5 different types of contrast, which you can use to add character, strength, beauty, and just overall pull your paintings together to make a better overall composition. So let's go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, I am Rachel Parker Varner, and on my channel you learn not just the how, but the why of watercolor, so you move along your painting journey a lot faster. And lately I've been talking a lot about composition, not just techniques, but composition, because compositions are the underlying scaffolding of a strong painting that you need no matter what kind of techniques you use. If you have a strong composition, you're going to have a much stronger painting. So I would like to talk about contrast, which is a very important element of having a good composition. Now, a few weeks ago, I talked about having my mind blown by Charles Reed when he said, focus more on local color versus focusing on contrast to make your painting stronger. And I like that idea and I want to play with that idea. But in the meantime, I also like to use contrast to really make my paintings a lot stronger. Throughout the ages, artists have relied on contrast to make stronger paintings. Whether Charles Reed agrees or not, contrast is a very important compositional element that lots of artists rely on to make stronger paintings. So it is important. Great case in point is this painting that I recently finished for my Patreon students. This is a start to finish tutorial. It's about a 3-hour painting project, and I do plan on making smaller paintings that are simpler and faster for those of you who have less time. So I have more coming along this vein that will be easier, faster painting projects than a 3-hour tutorial, but that is available on my Patreon. And by the way, you can also follow me for free on Patreon and just keep up with what I'm doing. And I'd love to see you there. I also have a Facebook group where you can join for free and you can post your paintings and get to know us. And on almost every single painting people post there, I comment. So I would love to get to know you better over on my Facebook group. But anyway, let's talk about the 5 different types of contrast. And there's probably more, but I want to talk about 5 today. And the first type of contrast that is usually the most obvious to artists is dark versus light. In this painting, I have a lot of dark versus light, obviously. There's the dark stripes against the light background. There are the lighter elements of the flowers against the darker stripes. And I wasn't planning on putting stripes in this painting, but at the end where we go through the ugly stage, every painting goes through an ugly stage. And just when you think it's not possible to have an ugly stage when you're painting something so beautiful as sunflowers, how can you have an ugly stage? You can. I did it. Take a look. Let me show you. All right, so this is the ugly stage. And I realized that as this stood, it was an okay painting. There were a lot of pretty elements. The flowers themselves I thought were lovely, but they were getting lost because there were so many light flowers. I knew I was going to have to put in some more darks to really pop the flowers out. And I didn't want to do the typical thing. So I think I was inspired by Ali Kavanaugh's stripe series that she used to do. Maybe that's where it came from, because I've been really studying Ali Kavanaugh lately. I love her. And in fact, in an upcoming video, I will be trying these paint colors out and sharing a new, she talks about 2 paints that she likes to use to create all her skin tones. So I'm gonna talk about that in an upcoming video. So all the more reason to subscribe. These dark stripes really help me incorporate the idea of having dark versus light contrast. So that is the most obvious kind of contrast in a lot of paintings. This one, this one included. So let's talk about the next kind of contrast people might not think of as much, and that is gray versus saturated. Do I look weird? Okay, no. And that is gray color versus saturated full strength colors. Now, I painted these flowers with full strength color. I did not dilute them. I did not gray them down at all. And they were looking beautiful, but they still weren't popping. And if you want to pop beautiful, rich, saturated color, one of the ways that you can do that is add some grays into your painting. So when I did paint these stripes, not only did I make them dark for my dark versus light contrast, I also you want to see my dress while my coffee machine rinses itself out? It has pockets. I will put a link to this dress down below. It's on Amazon. It's not expensive. It's cotton. It has pockets. What more could you ask for? You need this for summer. All right, coffee machine is done. So let me get back to what I was saying. Gosh, what was I even saying? Okay, that's why I made these stripes not pure blue. I made them a grayed down blue. These stripes are painted with cobalt, Winsor violet, and a little bit of junk off my palette, a little bit of permanent green light, a little bit of yellow to gray them down. And I think it did help make these sunflowers stand out even more than they would have if I would have used a pure blue. However, this also taught me, why do artists do series? It's so that they can understand the painting process. They can understand the paintings that they're doing, because this makes me want to paint a similar painting all over again with pure blue stripes to just see how that would affect the composition. I think it might make it look a little bit cheerier and brighter. I'm curious, and curiosity killed this cat. So I have to try that. So that is contrast type number 2, is saturated color versus grays. All right, the next one is edges. You can have contrast in your edges. You can have lost versus found edges. Whenever you see a soft, melty edge, like in this flower right here, where I made the orange melt into the stripe, like, I love that. It has such a poetic look. And in fact, our beloved Charles Reed said have half soft edges and half hard edges. And that is a kind of contrast, to have hard versus soft edges. So I love that. And I try to incorporate as many soft edges as I could find. And here's a little side tip. If you're not sure where to put soft edges, put soft edges where you have similar values in things that are touching each other. So wherever I had kind of a full on saturated orange that is a medium value versus the stripe that is kind of a medium value too, that's where you can let them melt together. So anywhere in your painting that you have values like this light on light area, I could scrub this sunflower and make it a softer edge where the light sunflower hits the light background. Those are perfect places to have soft edges. And then of course you have your hard edges where there's dark on light or light on dark Rembrandt edges. And for those of you who have not learned the Rembrandt windmill principle, I will put a link up here so that you can learn about the Rembrandt windmill principle that talks about all these different value pairings between foreground subject and background subject that helps your painting really hang together way better. It's the most amazing thing that I've learned in the last 5 years, and I am not overemphasizing that, I promise. If you watch that video, you'll see how amazing the Rembrandt windmill principle, brought to us by James Gurney, really is. All right, let's move on to contrast type number 4, and that is textural contrast. And this painting was pretty easy to do that. First of all, the stripes are obviously very flat, so that provides a lot of contrast to some of these flowers that have a ton of texture, especially this hydrangea. Painting this hydrangea makes me really want to paint a bunch more hydrangeas. It's so easy and fun. And you will learn how to do that if you watch this full tutorial. Even if you don't want to paint all these flowers, you could watch that tutorial and just learn how to paint a hydrangea in a really impressionistic style. And it's just so easy and so fun. But anyway, so I do have a lot of textural contrast in this because the stripes are really smooth. Obviously, other elements in the painting like the vase and all that are smooth compared to a lot of texture, and especially the discs of the sunflower and the hydrangea. So contrast and texture is really helpful too to have in a painting. All right, the number 5 type of contrast that I realized was a type of contrast because of these stripes is chaos versus order. And I haven't really thought about that a lot as being one of the types of contrast until I did this painting. And I was like, oh, I have another kind of contrast, because I've been trying to think of I've been thinking about doing this video about contrast for a long time, but I'm finally doing it because I realized that's a 5th type of contrast. And put down below in the comments if you can think of other kinds of contrast. I'd love to hear from you. But so having these chaotic flowers in my painting, there wasn't a really strong focal point, and it was hard to visually look at it and know where to have your eye go. So when I introduced the rhythm and the evenness of these stripes, this order versus this chaos, I feel like it really helped this painting a lot. I think it is the number one reason why this painting pulled together so well at the very end, which is another thing I will say to those of you who watch my full length tutorials, always watch to the end. Paintings go through an ugly stage, and a lot of beginners fall off during the ugly stage thinking they've lost control and they're afraid of overworking. Don't be afraid of overworking your painting. Be afraid of underworking your painting. That's way worse. So you got to stick with me through the whole tutorial, and when you're painting on your own, even stick with it. Don't be afraid of overworking your painting. Be afraid of underworking your painting. And if I would have just given up, and because I did think the painting was done, I took the tape off and everything. I signed it. I was like, I'm done. And then I slept on it, which is another thing I would recommend. Just sleep on your paintings. And in the morning, you might realize, I really need to give this painting something else, and it deserves it, because I could see that the flowers were gorgeous. So I stuck with it and I added the stripes, and I really think it made it so much stronger. So anyway, I hope that you learned a lot from this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll subscribe and come join my Facebook group. We have so much fun, and I would love to see your paintings over there. And I do make a point to try to comment on everybody's paintings. So come see me there, and we would love to get to know you. My community is awesome. I hope you'll join my Patreon if you would like to learn from me more in depth. Right now, my Patreon is pretty much focused on animals, mostly cats and dogs. But I do have quite a few flower tutorials. I have quite a few portrait tutorials. I've got a little bit of everything. But if you want to paint soft, dreamy animals, my Patreon is definitely for you, especially cats. So I hope to see you there as well. But in the meantime, go watercolor your world. Bye, everybody.